today is Office 365 features that you should be using but probably aren't. So hopefully the material we cover today is new to most of you, and if not, reinforcement's always good. So I'll just get started. For those of you who don't know who I am, just a little bit of an intro. So my name is Tas Gray. I'm one of the directors here at Axiom IT. Been a Microsoft developer since a long time ago now, and more recently got right into Office 365, went and got certified with the Office 365 Solutions Associate, and basically I'm a big cloud advocate, so I live and breathe it. I like to think I know a thing or two about Office 365. And for those of you who haven't already got me on LinkedIn, please feel free to add me and follow me on Twitter. Occasionally I tweet about things that are hopefully of interest to you. And also here with us today is Ganesh, so I'll let Ganesh introduce himself.
Hey all, my name is Ganesh and I've recently joined TAS's team as a business development manager for Cloud Complete. I like technology, like to talk about it, but really love to understand how it benefits the end user so that they can adopt technology a lot more. And I'm known to be a patient listener, so which you will get to see in the calls to come, in the conversations to come. Thank you all.
All right, thanks, Ganesh. So just quickly, today's agenda, we'll cover quickly what Office 365 and what it is, and then a little bit of an overview on digital transformation, which is one of those buzzwords that tends to fly around at the moment. And we'll also get into the 4 features that we promised you when you signed up. Quickly touch on Cloud Complete, and then a Q&A at the end for anyone who's got questions. All right, so what is Office 365? It's a question we get a lot, and it's also a question that we like to ask people. So when we do go out and ask people what Office 365 is, we typically get these responses. The first one, always email. The next one's calendar, contacts, and then of course Word, Excel, the Microsoft Office desktop suite, essentially. So if we were to map that out and see what that actually looks like, it would, from our point of view anyway, it looks like a bit of a wheel. But as you can see, if you're following along, it's a pretty big wheel, and the things that I've just covered and the answer we get to that question more often than not covers really only 4 out of many, many things. So obviously there's a lot more to Office 365 than what you're seeing right now, and that's the reason for this webinar. But in fact, if you are under the impression that it is only email, calendar, contacts, and desktop apps, then I've got good news for you, because it is in fact much more. So the bigger picture looks something like this. And I'll just give you a second to take that in. So for anyone who is using Office 365, or feels that they're getting a lot more out of it, feel free to jump in on the chat. But yeah, let us know if you are using anything here, or if you're curious about anything in particular, because we will, in future webinars, cover this material in more detail, taking one slice at a time. So, and then obviously when we look at this, there's a lot here, but I guess a good question we need to ask ourselves is, if we are just using Office 365 for the basic things like email, and we have all these other things available to us, then the question we need to ask ourselves is, why do we want to use all these other features? Microsoft have gone out and developed all of this stuff. We need to be taking advantage of it. Ganesh, we've got some feedback. Can you try and mute that person? All right, so if you've been on any of my other webinars, you'll know that one of the things I've talked about is email and how heavily overused email is, and being an old technology, that's not a good thing. There are newer tools now available to us that we can use, which don't replace email, but they work in complement, or they work to complement email, so that we can minimize our dependence on email and enable us to communicate in more efficient, more effective ways. So the reason we would want to do that, though, is because it really comes down to productivity and efficiency. So if we are relying primarily on email, chances are it's not an effective way to work, and we're losing time and we're losing productivity, which ultimately costs money. So what they say is that by using social technologies, which are things like instant messaging, group chat, and other sort of collaboration tools that have been born in the cloud, we can actually increase the productivity of our knowledge workers by 20 to 25%, which on a modest salary, as you can see there, adds up to quite significant savings. And as you add more employees into the mix, that starts to really add up. So people can actually get a lot more done and be a lot more effective, which ultimately will save money. So this obviously ties in then to that buzzword I mentioned earlier, which is digital transformation. I'm sure we've all heard this in recent times, and we'll probably continue to hear that, for the next 5 years. So the question is really, what is digital transformation, and why do we want to do it? So given that it is such a broad term, for the context of I guess where we sit at Cloud Complete and what we're trying to do, we're looking at it as taking this wheel of Office 365 and turning it from what's in the left into what's on the right. So essentially enabling your business to use all of these tools to become more productive. So then following on from that, the question that we need to ask is, how do we actually do this transformation? So assuming that we understand what it is and we've bought into this idea that we want to transform our business, we need a strategy for how to actually do that. So on a very high level, it sort of looks like this. So it begins with awareness. So if we are doing things the old way, we need to become aware that that's maybe not the right way of doing things anymore, and we need to start looking at other ways. The fact that you're here today is an indication that you're probably aware that something's changed and that you maybe need to do something, which is an indication that you're on the right track. Obviously, if we want to digitally transform, we need the right tools in order to do so. For us, or for Cloud Complete and for most businesses, those tools are all included in Office 365. The next thing we need to do is make a commitment. So that commitment is a commitment to change in the business. So if we don't commit to change, it won't happen. Why won't it happen? Because changing is difficult. It won't be easy, but we have to commit in order to get there. And following on from that commitment, we need a cultural change. So we need the people in the business to adopt a mindset of, is there a better way? There has to be a better way. Let's find a better way. Let's stop wasting time. And then we need education. So we need to educate ourselves and our staff on how we can do this. And in today's day and age with the internet, that's never been easier. So if we want to learn how to do something, there'll be a YouTube video, there'll be a web page on it. Microsoft, in particular, for Office 365, provide a huge amount of resource. So education is actually a lot easier. But for those who actually want someone to hold their hand and walk them through it, the next option is training. So that's a little overview of digital transformation. We won't go into that in any more detail, but it's a good thing to be aware of. Now, as I said earlier, we were going to show you 4 features in Office 365 today that you're probably not using that you may want to use. So the first thing that we've got up is OneDrive for Business. Is there anyone out there who's actually using OneDrive for Business? Feel free to jump in on the chat. Simon, good. Great. So we've got quite a few people actually using it, which is good and a little bit surprising. So, I mean, for those of you who don't know what OneDrive for Business is, all right. So, all right. Well, Des, hopefully we can help you out. Okay, so OneDrive for Business, what is it? So it's obviously included in Office 365. It is a place to store your files in the cloud. You get 1 terabyte of storage. You can synchronize that down either to your PC or your Mac, and it is backed up in the cloud, so we don't need to worry about backing it up. And we have apps available for OneDrive on Android and iOS, so we can access it on our phone, on our computer, in a web browser, no matter where we are. So that's the basic features, but then what it also allows us to do is collaborate. So hopefully when I say collaborate, some or all of us understand what I mean, but what we'll do is we'll jump in and we'll actually show you today what I mean by collaboration. But first of all, before I start talking about collaboration with OneDrive for Business, it probably makes sense to understand why, because unless we understand why we're doing something, there is really no point in actually doing it. So one of the biggest problems, or maybe not a problem, but one of the biggest trends we see in collaboration, or strategies for collaboration, I should say, is emailing documents backwards and forwards. So probably this happens more with external people external to your organization. And essentially what happens is someone creates a document, they might save it on their desktop or they might save it on the network drive. They then email a copy to someone, they make some changes, it gets sent back. The changes potentially have to be merged. If there are multiple people, then multiple merges are required, and quite often things get lost or left out, which can be quite a messy process. So if we're doing that, that's a huge waste of time. We want to eliminate that, and that's where collaboration comes into play. So when we use a cloud-based storage solution like OneDrive for Business, it enables us to use what's called a single source of truth, which means we have 1 copy of the file and 1 copy only. And rather than sending that file backwards and forwards, we all edit the same copy. Now, traditionally, this hasn't been possible because files were typically saved on a network drive, and when a user opened a file, it became locked. So you then had to either create a copy or wait for that user to get out. However, in OneDrive, we don't have that problem anymore. Okay, and so the way that OneDrive allows us to overcome this is with real-time collaboration. So what I'll do, I'll just give you a quick demo. So what I've done here, for those of you who are not familiar with Office 365, this is actually the Office 365 portal. And what I've got up here is my own OneDrive. So as you can see, it looks a lot like your Windows File Explorer, only it's in a browser. I do also have my OneDrive synchronized down to my desktop, which I'll just bring up for you. As you can see, it's more or less the same thing, only it's in Windows Explorer. So let's assume that I'm going to create a new Word document. And this document is going to be used by many people. What I might like to do in a collaboration scenario is share this document with Ganesh. So just by clicking on that share button, I can bring up the dialog, select Ganesh, and then I've got the option here to either allow him to edit or view the document. Given that we're collaborating, he'll need to edit it. And I'll just include a message here. And hit share. So what I've done, I've just created a document in my OneDrive. I've then shared that document with Ganesh, which sends an email off to him, letting him know that I've created a document, I've shared it with him, and I'd like him to work with me on that document. Now what he will do is accept that link, and once he does that, he can then actually jump in and start collaborating with me on that document. Also worth showing you, that document now is also synchronized onto my desktop. So if I wanted to open it in Word on the desktop, I can do that too. So right now I'm working on the desktop version of Word. And you can see here that if you look closely up the top, Ganesh has come in and made some changes to that document. I'm also in the document. And if I flick back to the browser, I can see that Ganesh is making some changes. Also appear in the desktop version of Word. So everything's sort of seamlessly working together now. So it doesn't matter which Word I use, whether I use the browser Word, whether I use the desktop Word, it's all synchronized together. So now I can see, not only can I see Ganesh's changes in real time, I've avoided that issue of having to email the document backwards and forwards. And I'm in full control as well, so I can decide that if I no longer want Ganesh to edit that document, I can take away his access. Another thing too that they also recently added is the ability to chat while you are in the document. So if Ganesh and I were on opposite sides of the world and wanted to discuss the document over Instant Messenger, we can do that without actually leaving Word, which is quite handy. And there you go. All right. Has anyone got any questions on that? Okay, no questions. Now, another example of where this is really useful is using Excel spreadsheets online. We've got a question. Okay, so does this work for external people to your organization or just internal? No, it works externally as well. So if you wanted to share this with someone who's not part of your business and do what we've just done, absolutely you can do that. All right, so going back to my OneDrive, you might notice too that I have a tendency now to work in the browser as opposed to Windows Explorer, which probably goes against a lot of the way in which many of you are working. However, after doing this for so long, it's really I'm of the view that working in the browser is actually now more efficient. And if you're not using the browser, I would encourage you to start doing that. So here I've got just a simple cash flow spreadsheet. Again, saved in my OneDrive. Now, if Ganesh was to jump in, I'm not sure if I've shared this with him or not. And just to show you again how easy it is to share something. All right, so question from Des, does the browser version have the same command set as the desktop version of the apps? That's a good question, and the answer is no. So the desktop application is a richer experience. However, they do continually add features to the browser versions. So I think that eventually they will reach parity, but I couldn't tell you when that would happen. But from my experience, I've found that working in the browser for most things is fairly good now. Okay, so I've sent an invite off to Ganesh. I'm not sure whether he's got it yet, but just wait for him to jump in. Okay, Simon, so I'd say that that's got something to do with the regional settings in Office 365, which you can change. All right, so you can see I've just been notified now that Ganesh is editing the workbook, and I can actually see the cell he's working on with the blue outline. That's Ganesh moving around. So what we're doing here is effectively live collaboration in Excel, which previously was not possible, but now using Excel online and storing it in OneDrive, this can be done easily. All right, so that's collaboration in OneDrive. Fairly basic, just a quick overview of what you can do. There's obviously a lot more functionality to it, but we won't go too much further into it today because we do have other things to get through. Okay, so the next thing is Skype for Business. Now, again, I'm going to ask a question, is anyone actually using Skype for Business on the call? Obviously, we're all in the meeting, which is on Skype for Business, but from a day-to-day, great, got a few people. All right, good. So, all right, so some people are using it, some are not. It's all right. We're here to change all of that. All right, so I mean, the benefits of instant messaging are probably obvious to most of us. It's been around for, well, I would say over 20 years. Maybe I'm not sure if anyone remembers, but when I was younger, ICQ was the thing to come along that was rather popular. Anyhow, we probably all use instant messaging on a daily basis. If we use Facebook, we're probably using Facebook chat, things like that. So there's nothing really new about instant messaging, but it does obviously bring a lot of benefits, which is first and foremost, it does in a business context or even in a personal context, it can reduce our dependence on email because we have got the option just to chat, or we can do audio and video calling. And it's obviously great for communication in real time or where we need a quick response and we don't want to wait for an email. And the other thing, of course, is most instant messaging programs will allow us to show a status of some kind, whether we're available, away, busy, or do not disturb. So why do we want to use Skype for business for instant messaging over, say, the traditional Skype or Facebook chat or maybe Google Hangouts, or I'm sure there's others I can't think of. And there's a couple of reasons. So Skype for Business integrates with Outlook. It saves our conversation history in Outlook. So this is really good if we need to go and recall that conversation at a later date. So you may have experienced this personally. I know I have. When I've used Skype and then I've gone to another computer, I can no longer get that conversation history, which can be quite inconvenient. And Skype for Business, given that it's in Office 365, it's linked to our calendar. So it knows when we're available, it knows when we're in a meeting, and it knows when we're potentially away from our desk. And so we don't have to update our status manually. It takes care of that for us. And here's the big thing. As a business, you want to be able to control and manage these things. So if you're giving this to your staff, you want to be able to determine whether or not they can chat to people outside of your business. Some people don't want that. And you might want to determine whether or not they can add people from external networks like Skype, which you can't do when you're using other products. Skype for Business has apps for iOS and Android, which means you don't necessarily need to be on a computer to use it. And the biggest benefit, as I see it, is that it's there, it's free in Office 365. So if you are already on Office 365, you don't have to pay anything to start using it. All you need to do is sign in. And one other thing that I haven't mentioned here is the ability to hold online meetings. So what we're doing today, right now, we're using Skype for Business. It costs us nothing to do this, and we can also record the meeting too. So it's pretty powerful. So what I'll do now, I'll just give you a quick question. Okay, so Des, can I Skype for Business with someone on Skype Personal? So the answer to that question is yes, you can do it, but you can also prevent that. So within your Office 365 tenant, you actually get to decide whether or not your users can connect with people on regular Skype. But if you want to, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and Simon's just made a good point here. So you can actually use Skype for Business to present your desktop, and then you can allow people to take control. So it is a remote access kind of tool as well. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll just give you a quick overview. So my Skype looks a little bit like this. So as you would expect, it looks a lot like any other instant messaging program. You've got your contacts, they've got a status, so green being available, yellow being away, red being busy. And if I select someone, I've got the option to send them a message, call them, start a video call, schedule meetings, and do things like that. So I've got a combination of people here, both internal and external. Some of our clients have me on here, suppliers. Some of our customers like to instant message me, which is great. Open to that. So if you do want to add me on Skype for business and you are using it, TAS at Axiom IT, just click on the button up here, add a contact, not in my organization, and then whack my email address in. Now again, this assumes that your Office 365 tenant has been set up in such a way that you have permission to add external contacts. If you don't, then you won't be able to do this, but by default that's on. But it just highlights the fact that you are in control here. And then of course I can group people by status. I've created my own groups, I've got clients, I've got suppliers, so on and so forth. So that's the main program window. The other thing that's worth having a look at is the integration into Outlook that I mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to bring that up, but okay, so first things first, the conversation history is actually just a folder in Outlook. So any conversation I have will appear here, and if I want to refer back to it later, I can just scroll through, or I can use a search, and it will help me find what I'm looking for. Now, because it is in my Office 365 mailbox, that does mean that it's also in the cloud. So if I did, say, for example, need to log in via a web browser, my mail, I'll let that load and come back to it. Here we go. It's there for me in the cloud in a browser as well, which again is handy if I don't have my regular computer. Okay, going back to the integration, let's have a look. I'll see if I can find someone. Okay. Where are we? So here we've got long. This is not working for some reason. I'm sure many of you on the call know who long is. Okay, here we go. Just try to hide the content of this email. Anyway, okay, here we go. So as you can see, Long's got this little green bar next to his name, which basically is telling me that Long's available, and the way this works is this is the Skype for Business integration. So from Outlook, I can actually see, all right, Long's available, and maybe this email I want to have a quick chat to him about, because rather than reply, I just need to know something specific. So I won't interrupt him, he's probably busy, but just highlighting the fact that I can actually just, from Outlook, or instant message him and get a bit of more information about what he's up to and so on and so forth, which is quite handy. It seems like a simple thing, but once you've got it, you actually start using it more and more. Okay. Now the other thing that's worth mentioning, which I can't really demonstrate for you today, but it's the unified communications aspect of it. So because Skype for Business is available on the iPhone, Android, and iPad, computer, any device you like, the more devices you sign into, the more available you become. So if I'm signed into my phone and I'm no longer in the office, but Ganesh sends me an instant message, doesn't matter, I'll still get it on my phone. And if I want to, I can actually call him from my phone over Skype for Business. So it is quite a powerful thing. If Ganesh does call me and I'm signed in on my phone will actually ring. So if you haven't already, if you are using Skype for Business, download the app to your phone, sign in using your work email account. It's really all you need to do to get up and running. And of course, if you do have any difficulty with it, you can reach out to us. So that's Skype for Business in a nutshell. We will probably go into that a bit deeper in a future webinar, so keep an eye out for that. If anyone's got any questions or comments on that, feel free to jump in. Before I jump into the next section, which is Delve. So anyone using Delve at all? Familiar with it? All right, so given that no one's responded, I'm going to assume that no one's really using it. Okay, so a bit of an overview then. So I guess one of the biggest challenges that we face now, in the information age, is that we're overwhelmed by information, and trying to remember where we stored things and what we worked on last can be a challenge. So Sharon's just chimed in and said that she is in fact using Delve, and it's great when I can't remember where I've saved something. So Sharon, are you using the search to do it, or are you tell me how you're using it? Search. Okay, great. I might have to get you on to present. Okay, so quick overview then. So Delve is just another tool in Office 365, and I'll give you a moment just to read this, but essentially what it aims to do is to surface content that's relevant to you. Now that content obviously has to live in Office 365, and it can come from various places. Typically you'll see it coming from OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange, meaning your email, so email attachments, Yammer, which is something we haven't covered but will, and if you're using Groups or Planner, it will come from there also, and OneNote. So essentially all of the places that you would typically store information in Office 365, Delve will surface content from those places. And the idea is that it's breaking down silos. So, information traditionally has been stored either in people's mailboxes, where it's of no use to anyone but that person, or it might live on their desktop in their My Documents, or maybe buried in a network folder somewhere that no one really knows about. So the idea is to surface content and make you aware of things, and also help you to find things that are of relevance to you. And the way it does this is it uses machine learning and artificial intelligence, so which is a little bit scary, but that's the future. So how do you use Delve? It's pretty simple. You don't actually have to do anything to use Delve except start putting everything into Office 365. And by that I mean saving documents in OneDrive and SharePoint, utilize Groups and Planner, and you're done. That's it. Delve takes care of the rest. So how do you access Delve? There's a couple of ways. If you log into the portal, which is just portal.office.com, you've probably seen the tile. It looks like this blue one just here. If we click onto that, it takes me to the Delve dashboard. There's also a Windows 10 app. So if you're using Windows 10, I encourage you to get this. Okay, now what this is doing is it's showing me my recent documents and attachments. So you can see the document I just created with Ganesh, and you can also see the cash flow document, and you can also see the PowerPoint presentation that I'm using right now. So it knows what I'm doing, and it's surfacing that information for me. You'll also see here that on the left is my profile. So this is a great way if you want to get your photo in Office 365. We've found that a lot of businesses who do that really, they love it. It pops up everywhere in Outlook, in Skype. So you can come in here, you can edit your profile. Which is, yeah, a little bit like a LinkedIn profile, but a little bit scaled back, but a good thing to do. Okay, so this is the information that it's decided is relevant for me. Now what I can do, I can actually go and click on Ganesh. I can see what Ganesh has been working on recently, but it's only showing me information that I've got access to. So here we're looking at some OneNote notebooks. Now I also happen to have access to that notebook, which is why it surfaced it. Things that Ganesh has been working on in his own OneDrive, for example, I can't see that because I don't have permission. Just like Sharon mentioned, if I want to find something that I've been working on recently, I can just scroll through because I know it'll be here somewhere, but I can also search. So if I was going to search for something, say Office 365 features, it will go away and it searches across everything in Office 365. So that's SharePoint. If you're not familiar with that, come to our SharePoint webinar. It'll search through Office documents. Now, the other thing that's worth mentioning here that's really powerful, traditionally search in Windows, I'm not sure if anyone's ever tried it, but it's not very good. And the reason it's not very good is because it searches the title of a document, and that's it. Now, when you start to put your content into Office 365, what it actually does is it indexes the contents of the documents. So not only is it searching through the title, it's searching through the actual document contents, which actually makes it much more useful and much more powerful. Now, there's various other things we can do with Delve. We can create favorite documents. We can create workboards as well, which I think you need to be in the browser to do. So boards. If I want to create a new board, I haven't done this for a while, but I would essentially create the board, and then this becomes open to anyone who is in Office 365. They can see the boards. I just pin documents to the board and they can access them. So it's a good way to group information. We will go into this in more detail at a later date, so I won't cover it in too much more detail today. The other thing worth noting, though, there are apps available for Delve on iOS and Android, so get onto those. They're free to download. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there today. And the fourth feature, and this one is probably my favorite feature, is the Office 365 Planner. And before I jump in to the planner, I'll just open it up to questions again. So if anyone's got any questions about Delve, shout out now. Okay, so Desno, it's available in the web interface as well as the Windows 10 app, as well as on the iOS and Android apps. All right, so it doesn't look like anyone else has got any questions. Planner, is anyone out there using Planner? Okay, yeah, Asana. Asana's, yeah, similar. All right, so someone's just saying it's a bit harder than Trello. So Planner is effectively the same thing as Trello, although I'm not overly familiar with the features in Trello. I suspect they're fairly similar. All right, so look, hopefully after seeing this is something that you go away and have a look at. Just to give you get a bit of insight into it, we use Planner so heavily in our business. It's been an absolute game changer, and if Microsoft were to take it away tomorrow, we'd probably have chaos on our hands. So that just gives you an idea, I guess, of how heavily we rely on it and how good we think it is. And that's not because we're here advocating the product, but it actually is extremely powerful, and hopefully I can convey that value to you now. And yes, Des, it is I'm not sure how you say that word, but I think it's Kanban tool. So what is it? It's a new approach to teamwork in Office 365 that's available in every plan. So again, if you're on Office 365, you've already got it. It's worth having a look. So I don't have anything to actually say on that other than just to jump in and give you a demo. So you can see here, this is the planner dashboard. I've got quite a lot of plans. I've got my favorite plans sitting across the top here. And what I'll do, I'll jump into one of the demo plans that we set up. Now it's worth pointing out, so Planner is only web-based at this point. So what we're looking at here is the board, and this is the Kanban board, I think is the word. And what we're looking at here on the left and in the middle here, these are our tasks. So tasks are set up as cards, if you like, and they're organized into buckets. So we've created these buckets here. And what we can do is we can actually move tasks into different buckets. So we can sort of track the status and progress by seeing where they sit visually. Now, as we complete tasks, we can tick them off and they disappear, and they sit here under the show completed items. You'll also notice that on this particular task, there's a photo of Ganesh and there's a photo of me. And the reason is we've both been assigned to that task. So if I was to create a new task, learn more about Planner. If I click on it, I can actually create subtasks that are assigned to this task. And as I actually progress, I can tick those off. I can also type a more detailed description. And that will also show up. Maybe not. I will if I tick that box. There we go. Okay, I can do things like assign label colors. And so Joanna's asked the question, when you assign a task to a person, do they get a notification? And yes, they do. And the way that you assign a task to someone, there's a couple of ways, but the way I like to do it, if you look up here, you'll see that, again, there's a photo of Ganesh and I. We both belong to this plan, and if I want to assign a task to Ganesh, I just drag his picture on, and he's been assigned. So I can also set status here, in progress or completed, assign start and due dates. So if I was to set the due date to tomorrow, I can attach files, links, and then we can have a conversation about it too. So Ganesh may come in and offer to help me. So that's the Kanban board component of it. We can also get a chart view. Okay, so Rebecca's asked if we can create task dependencies. So this is a very basic project management tool. So the answer to that question is no. If you need something more in depth, you might want to look at project. Okay, and so I can see the status of the tasks on a chart. If I was to mark it as complete, that would obviously update and it would go green, or if it was in progress, it would go blue, and so on and so forth. Go away and have a play with that. You'll find it's very intuitive. Now, the other thing that Planner gives you is a calendar. So anyone in the plan gets a calendar, and you can synchronize that calendar to Outlook. It also gives you an area to store files, so a document library. Okay, so it looks much like OneDrive because in the background it's more or less the same thing. So I can add new Office documents, I can upload documents, I can add images. And it also gives us a notebook. For those of you who do use OneNote, you will be familiar with this. If you don't, that's another webinar we'll cover. OneNote is an absolutely essential tool. Okay, so the question from Renato is, does SharePoint do a similar thing? And the answer is yes. You can do this in SharePoint, and effectively Planner is SharePoint in the background. They've just put a nice user-friendly interface on the top of it. Now, I could probably talk about this for another half an hour, but I won't because we're running out of time. I need to hand over to Ganesh. But again, I will say, if you haven't played with this, it should be there in your tenant now. Go in, look. If you click on the app launcher, you'll see Planner shows up. The best way to get started is quite literally just to go and get started. And the other thing to note too, the content that goes into Planner is indexed by Delve. So going back to the previous demo, if I was to search and I had content in my plans, it would also come up in Delve. All right, so I've talked enough. I hope that you found the demo to be useful. What I'll do is I'll hand over to Ganesh.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Des, for the demonstration on Office 365 features. We're just going to have a quick discussion about Cloud Complete, and then the next steps from here on. I think if you remember from what Taz had mentioned, Taz had talked about digital transformation and why that was one of the main reasons for Cloud Complete to emerge, for the idea of Cloud Complete to emerge. But moving on from there, what we did was we also added a lot more layers, which we'll talk about in very brief in a very brief scenario. So the idea expanded into a solution to help move businesses onto the cloud. And the journey has taken us about 5 years. So it's been 5 years of trial and error, which led us to the ultimate cloud bundle. Now, why do we call it ultimate? The reason why we call it ultimate is because we walk the talk and we end up using the products in our day-to-day work, which essentially means two things. One is that the more we use it, the more we optimize the product for our end customers, which would be hopefully many of you. And the other thing is that we believe in the products. We're quite happy to use that, and we're quite happy to recommend the same to our customers as well. Now, in terms of the layers that we've added on to Cloud Complete is what Cloud Complete has what we've done is that taken Office 365, and obviously we want to evangelize all the features that's going to help make your work easier. But we've added layers like support, security, training, and streamlining your budget. Quite a few of the small business owners that I've had a chat with in the past 2 months have had quite a bit of issues budgeting for future IT costs. They're unable to get a clear idea on where they're going to spend money in. What Cloud Complete does is that it helps you with streamlining the costs so that you can then budget for the other core business areas in your line of work. The other prominent feature is the 24/7 support. Quite a lot of small business owners, and I'm sure some of you would have faced the situation. You don't want to call support because it ends up costing you. And the fallout of that is that sometimes you learn to live with the problem, which is not an ideal situation. So this is 24/7 support. This is included in the package. And what it does is that it gives you the authority to tell your colleagues, to tell your employees that if you have a problem, pick up the phone at any point in time and call us, and we'll be able to solve the issue for you. Now, the other layer is the training. In terms of training, so training is provided with the ultimate package. We'll be talking about the plans in the next slide, but training is added in the ultimate package. But when it comes to education, we're pretty strong on the education front. And you can sample that with the webinar that you are attending right now. So we are going to push on a lot more educational webinars. We're going to focus on one particular feature on a very frequent basis, which we believe needs to be optimized. So, what are the Cloud Complete plans? As you can see here, we've got 3 flavors, if you may. The basic, which is essentially a web-only plan. Then we've got the advanced, which is a step up above the basic. And the most popular option, which is the ultimate, because it just gives you everything that you want on the cloud. Obviously, it's based on business needs. It's not a one size fits all. So what we would do is that we would have a chat, understand your business needs, and propose the best plan for you, for your business. Now, when it comes to some of the features, as you can see quite a few features over there, like cloud signatures, backup, online, advanced security. When it comes to, let me just touch upon cloud signatures, which I think is a pretty cool thing to have, is that at least in my previous company, we had quite a bit of a hassle asking employees to get the signature to the right template. As a result of which, the branding was not uniform across the company. What Cloud Signatures does is that it helps you manage signatures on the cloud admin level, essentially, which means that you can take care of seasonal greetings, you can take care of promotions, whatever the case may be. So that's that. But Cloud Signatures is uniform. I mean, is provided across the plans. When it comes to the Office 365 flavor, for the basic, it's just the web apps only. For advanced, it's the business, and for ultimate, it's the professional plus edition. So that's to do with the plans per se. We've got now some of the features might change, but what remains consistent across all the plans is the security that you get, the cloud-based security, and the 24/7 support. So that's consistent across all plans. Now, if you have any questions with the plans, with what you can see, just type it in the chat window, and I'll be happy to answer that. Now, as I was telling you, we've been working on Cloud Complete for the past 5 years, and so we're finally ready for launch. The official launch for Cloud Complete happens on the 5th of June, which is next Monday. We've got a pretty great website coming up, and the best part about that, obviously you'll be getting an email about the launch, and you can check out the website on Monday. The great thing with the website is that it essentially takes you on a journey based on your pain points. So if your business has been having a particular pain point, and if you identify with that, it takes you on that particular journey and how we can help you out with that. We've also got some promotions happening on social media, and one planned exclusively for the webinar attendees. So what is that? Right. One of the webinar attendees gets to win a month of Cloud Complete absolutely free. I can literally hear some of you think, what's the catch? Obviously, apart from buying the product, obviously you need to be a Cloud Complete customer to get a month free. This offer is valid only for Ultimate and Advanced customers. So all the customers from this webinar will go for Ultimate and Advanced will go into a lucky draw, and the winner will be picked and notified by email. Now, this is a time-bound offer, and this is valid for a month from the launch. So from June 5th to July 5th is the validity of this particular offer. But yeah, we're pretty excited. It's pretty exciting, and we're pretty pumped for launching the Cloud Complete products on Monday. Right, so what's next? All people who've registered for this session will get a recording of the webinar. Now, in saying that, if you would like us to have a discussion as soon as possible about Cloud Complete, do indicate your interest in the chat box, and I'll be giving all of them a call today and tomorrow. In terms of other updates and future webinars, do follow us on social media. We've recently launched our social media channels. What I'll do is I'll copy and paste the links onto the chat box so that you can immediately just go ahead and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Yep. If there are any more questions, feel free to type them out in the chat box right now, and we'll be happy to answer that for you. Over to you, Taz.
All right, thanks, Ganesh. And